Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are putting the world's most famous urban legends, monsters, and mythological beasts, in other words, cryptids, onto the ultimate cryptid survivability tier list. I'm going to be ranking them from the F tier, which is going to be, it's basically just a weird dog, you can probably just kick it and you'll be fine, all the way up to S tier, which is, it's gonna rip you apart and there's nothing you can do about it. So, we're going to start off straight away with Bigfoot. So, Bigfoot. Out of all of the different ones, he is probably one of the most well-known cryptids, but I will go into what each one is and give a little bit of a description for each of them. So Bigfoot comes from the Pacific Northwest, which is in the United States and Canada, and he is described to be a massive, hairy, bipedal, ape-like creature standing between 7 and 10 feet tall. He is said to inhabit dense forests, and it's famous for leaving behind enormous footprints and a distinct pungent odor. Now, there's a lot of different media that covers this, like games, for example. And I think that Bigfoot it's like, would you win against a big gorilla? Now, a gorilla, I feel, is a lot more likely to kill you than Bigfoot. Bigfoot is known, like many cryptids, for being very avoidant of humans. And so I think that because of that, as long as you don't mess with it, it shouldn't mess with you. But let's take into account its physical strength. If you were to mess with it, I think this would be a pretty solid A tier, as it's basically just a gorilla that can stand 2 legs. So I think A tier is probably the best place for it. It's pretty strong, and if you ran into it, you're most likely gonna die no matter what you do, unless you have maybe a shotgun. Saying that, actually, let's say you had a shotgun or something to defend yourself. We'll go with like the average survivor is going to be a hunter with a shotgun walking through the forest. So we'll go with that. Under that pretense, I think as a gorilla would die to a shotgun blast at close range. We'll actually move it to B tier, as it could be killed by a shotgun, and it's something it can't do a range attack, so you'd pretty much be screwed if it did get near you. But moving on, the Loch Ness Monster. So this one is from the Scottish Highlands, and it's a large marine creature rumored to inhabit the deep, murky waters of Loch Ness. Most modern descriptions and famous hoaxes depict Nessie as a surviving plesiosaur, which is like an underwater dinosaur, and which is a prehistoric marine reptile with a long neck, small head, and flippers. Now, it is a pretty bad photo because this is like the hoax photo, basically, which is like a bit of a wooden thing that was put underwater to trick people into believing it's real. It is a underwater threat, so realistically, it's trapped in a loch. So the idea is that you don't go near the loch, and you should be fine. But let's say you were stupid enough to go on the loch in a little boat, and let's say you still have your shotgun. The shotgun's not going to do much in this situation because A, this thing is massive. It's a plesiosaur. It's a dinosaur. And it get you from underneath the boat, it can pull you under, and when you're underwater, the shotgun's not going to work, and there's very little you can do. But it's a very avoidable one. So for that, I think it's again probably going to be a B tier, because while it's very avoidable, same with Bigfoot, if you were to run into this, which is the list is going to be based on survivability, would you survive it? I would argue very, very unlikely that you'd survive unless you were able, maybe you're on a speedboat and you can get out of there quickly, but chances are, if it knocks you off your boat, there's nothing you can do. Now, moving on to the next one. I personally love this one. There's 3 on this list, which are my personal favorite. This is one of them, Mothman. So Mothman is from the region called Point Pleasant in West Virginia, which is in the USA, and is described to be a man-sized winged humanoid with massive glowing red eyes set into its chest or shoulders. As you can see in this, it's not really got a head. If I zoom in on it, the eyes are in the neck or the area where the head should be coming out of. The sightings peaked between 1966 and 1967. Culminating in the tragic collapse of the Silver Bridge, leading locals to view Mothman not as something that's going to kill you, but as an omen of impending disaster. Now, this one I really like because it wouldn't kill you itself. It's not something that looks all that imposing. I mean, yeah, if you came up to it, it'd be a bit scary, but it's a moth. It's a moth when it comes down to it, and they're not going to be very strong. So a shotgun would pretty easily kill Mothman. But it's not the Mothman you should be worried about. It's whatever the Mothman is representing at that time. So with the Silver Bridge collapse, some way was known that some people saw Mothman before it crashed down. So you could argue that this is the most avoidable cryptid because it literally tells you, okay, be careful, there's an impending disaster, prepare yourself so you can avoid it. But when it comes down to surviving Mothman, I think it's probably one of the easiest to survive, but not the easiest, so we put it in C tier, I think. If you were to shoot it, I think it'd be fine. It's a moth, basically. It's a big moth, yeah. So the next one we have is the Goat Man. Now, the Goat Man is from Maryland, Texas, and Kentucky, which is, again, USA. Most of these cryptids are from the USA. There's some from the Appalachian Wilderness, which is what my game is based on, so I'll be going into that later on. But the Goat Man is a classic American urban legend detailing a terrifying bipedal hybrid with the upper body of a man and the lower body of a horned goat. Or, well, in this case, this depiction shows it as the opposite, but the whole thing is like a humanoid goat, basically, similar to the Minotaur. So the legend splits it into two famous branches. You have the Maryland folklore, which is, he is said to be a mad scientist from the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center, and they were experimenting with goat DNA, and obviously it went wrong. What a fucking surprise. And this led him to terrorize backroads with an axe in this goat form. However, in Texas, it is known as the Goat Man of Alton Bridge, and the entity is tied to a historic old bridge where local occult lore and missing persons reports fueled a demonic haunting narrative surrounding this cryptid. Now, based on, let's say, this image alone, this thing is unlikely to die to a shotgun blast. Obviously, it's made out of flesh, but the Goat Man has goat legs, which does one thing that's different to, say, Bigfoot or any of these others, and that is that it has speed. So say you have a shotgun, you're wandering through the forest, and you see this thing, it would be a similar case to if you saw a moose. It can get to 30 or whatever miles an hour, and unless you can hit a shot, maybe it's in its head, or get at least 2 shots off before it reaches you, you're unlikely to survive this. So I think this is probably going to be our first A tier, purely because of its speed, and when it does reach you, it's a goat, so it's going to use those horns to either impale you or push your torso out of your body or crush your ribs or something like that. Very unlikely you're going to survive this with a shotgun. If at anything, your best bet is probably to, well, there's no point running, but it is there. Maybe a machine gun or a flamethrower whilst you're in a safe nest or something like that. Now, moving on, we have the Chupacabra. This one is actually, it is in the not United States, America, but it is Southwest America, which is in Puerto Rico, Mexico. So the Chupacabra, The Chupacabra means goat sucker in Spanish, and this creature is famous or infamous for attacking and draining the blood of livestock. Its original 1990s sightings described a bipedal lizard-like alien with spikes on its back, and the modern sightings in the US are more frequently describe a hairless, mangy, or mangy? Mangy, I don't know how to say. We'll go with mangy. Wild dogs or coyotes. So the two different depictions are pretty severe. So we're going to go with the original 1990s one, which is the bipedal lizard-like alien with spikes on his back, which is what this is. And this, compared to some kind of like hyena, is a lot more terrifying. Again, it has speed, so a shotgun isn't really going to do much. And especially if it's trying to take your livestock as well. I mean, this is probably the most likely encounter you're going to have out of all of the cryptids on this list. Now, again, yeah, so speed, it's probably quite agile because it's a 4-legged one. I mean, the rest of these are all bipedal, but when you have a quadrupedal, is that a thing? A quadruped, something like that. It's going to be a lot harder to shoot, whereas these ones, they haven't got the agility of 4 legs. So I'm going to put this one above the Goat Man in terms of you're very unlikely to survive this, and I think something maybe like a mine or something would be a good way to stop it, or just avoiding it in as much as you can. A shotgun's not really going to do anything against this, because especially considering a shotgun, you kind of have your 2 shots, and if one of those 2 shots gone, you're going to not have enough time to reload. So unless you're really good at aiming, you're very unlikely to die to the Chupacabra. Now, this one is another very, very well-known one, which is the Yeti, which is like the snowy version of Bigfoot in the way I see it. But It comes from the Himalayan mountains, and it is another tall ape-like creature covered in white or reddish-brown hair, so it can be similar to Bigfoot. And it is said to track through the high-altitude snows of Tibet, Nepal, and Bhutan, and it is deeply rooted in indigenous folklore long before Western explorers popularized it. Now, this image specifically shows it obviously feeding on mountain hikers, and a lot of times in history, the whole cryptid element from this comes where mountain climbers would go exploring these mountains before there was all phones and cameras and ways of recording, and they would die in snowstorms. But what other people would say is, oh no, there's some big monster up there that's killing them instead. So that's kind of the background of it. But in terms of surviving, it's going to be a Bigfoot situation where it's big gorilla basically. So in terms of physical strength, you're getting murked. But in terms of camouflage, which Bigfoot doesn't really fall into, the Yeti is, we're say, white. And in the snowy mountains, it's going to blend in a lot better than Bigfoot would blend in with his environment. Meaning that he is more easily going to sneak up to you and unable to get those 2 shotgun rounds off. And I think in this case, the Yeti is more commonly seen as bigger than Bigfoot and could probably take more shotgun blasts unless you hit him in the face or something like that. So I'm going to put the Yeti again in A tier because, again, none of these so far have got the supernatural element apart from the Mothman. But again, the Mothman doesn't use those supernatural abilities in a physical sense. It's more of like a metaphorical. Mothman is more of a symbol than he is a enemy or, aggressor. I didn't know how to move that. So next we have basically a dragon. This one is called the Jersey Devil. And it comes from the Pine Barrens in, funnily enough, New Jersey in the USA. And it is a bizarre chimeric creature described as having a kangaroo-like body and a horse's head, bat-like wings and horns, and a clothed hoofed tail. Local lore dates it original back to the 1735 curse placed on a woman known as Mother Leeds on her 13th child, which created this abomination. So I'm going to base my thoughts on this as this is our first, second flying entity. So I think flight really puts it above, obviously, a water-based or land-based creature. And unlike the Mothman, this thing has massive teeth, big claws, massive tail. But I don't think those wings are going to be taking it anywhere. And in the description, obviously, it's bat wings. Bat wings are not going to let this thing fly. So actually, I'm going to go into the pretense that it cannot fly, and the bat wings are just there for like decoration to make it look like a cool cryptid, basically. However, this thing is, again, I would describe it as, a dragon kind of like creature, but we'll go with the kangaroo idea. Kangaroos are pretty fast, so I would maybe argue that it has speed on its side. But apart from sharp claws and, big teeth, this thing is pretty skinny. Most chimeric things are quite skinny. So a shotgun blast, if you can hit it, would do pretty well. But again, it comes down to, will you hit it in time before it reaches you? So we'll go with the speed, but also lack of durability, and put it in a B tier as if you don't hit your shots, basically, you'll die. Next, this one, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, but I'm going to really, really try. The Mokele Mbombe. Oh my god, that's awful. I tried. We're just going to say this is a Diplodocus at this point. A modern day Diplodocus. So this one, as you can see, it comes from, its region where it's known for is the Congo River Basin in Central Africa. And its description is a water-dwelling cryptid rumored to live in the vast, swampy interiors of the pretty unexplored Congo. Local legends and cryptozoologists describe it as a living sauropod dinosaur, hence why I'm calling it a Diplodocus. And it is similar to a Brontosaurus, Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, or anything like that. And it has an elephant-like body and a long neck. So, yeah, it's basically a living Diplodocus. A shotgun is doing nothing. You can try hitting it in the head, but the head is going to be 20 meters or 10 meters above you. So you're not going to hit that, and it's going to be able to use its tail and catch up to you very quickly. This is, again, I need to get a D tier in here somewhere. We're going to reorder these towards the end. A sauropod, it's a dinosaur. A shotgun's not going to do anything against that. So it is going to have to be an A tier. It's basically a massive walking tank. And I mean, obviously spears aren't going to do anything, as you see in this image. What is the point in throwing a spear? You may as well just focus on running. But yeah, it's a big dinosaur. You're going to struggle winning against this thing with a little shotgun. So I think but it belongs in A tier as a living organism tank. Now, this is one of my second favorite, or it is my favorite, but it's one of 3 favorites, the Wendigo. Now, there's a lot of debate online over whether it looks like this thing with a deer skull for a head versus a vampire-like humanoid with this really pale and skinny, like a skinwalker. I'm going to go down the context that it is the deer thing rather than the vampire thing. So the Wendigo comes from the Great Lakes and Northwoods region of the US and Canada, and I'm going to say it also mainly comes from Appalachian wilderness, which is where a lot of cool cryptids come from. And it is described to originate first in Native American folklore, specifically, okay, I'm going to throw down this Algonquian speaking people, and they say that the Wendigo is a malevolent supernatural entity associated with winter, starvation, and cannibalism. Now, in traditional folklore, it is a giant humanoid spirit possessing a person who has resorted to cannibalism, which is also what is shown in Pet Sematary, where it takes control of pets when they die, and the pets eat their owners and stuff like that. But aside from that, and it's driven by an insatiable hunger that grows every time it eats. So while modern pop culture often depicts it with a deer skull and antlers, as seen in this artwork, the ash-coloured human form with decaying skin and eyes sunk deep in their sockets is what it originally looked like. Oh, sorry, emaciated as well. So that's the Wendigo. There's the outline for this thing. I love the Wendigo with so much love because the design is incredible. And the fact that it has this supernatural ability to possess people, obviously in this case, the Wendigo is seen as, well, you're either possessed by a Wendigo or there is an actual Wendigo. And I'm going to go with both. I'm going to say that this creature, it can possess you and can also be a physical thing. And I think based on the ability to do that, it is a very powerful thing, because if you're possessed, you're going to struggle to fire any shotgun blasts. Now, secondly, it's supernatural, and it has an insatiable hunger, which I'm going to interpret as it is unkillable / immortal, in the sense that a shotgun's not going to do anything to it. So you're wandering through the woods at night, and you hear a deer noise call out to you, as you aim your shotgun at where the noise came from, and this thing appears out of the wilderness. You may as well put the shotgun down and just get on your knees and accept what's coming. Because I don't think this is the second most unsurvivable, is that even a word? Unsurvivable cryptid on the list. Possession, all of that, the sheer strength of it as well. Yeah, it's going in S tier. And also for design, I know this is not to do with survivability, but for design, out of all of these creatures, I personally find the Wendigo is one of the coolest design. But it is only topped, all of these are only topped by one cryptid, which is not a necessarily real cryptid, or it's not like a cryptid in the sense of all of these ones, but it is actually a Nordic cryptid. I mean, some people, you could even argue it's not cryptid, and instead is a demigod, because we're now going to move on to Moda from the movie The Ritual. Now, Moda is from the dense, untouched wilderness of northern Sweden, which is said to come from Sarek National Park. Again, I'm so sorry for pronunciation, I cannot do it. And the description of it is that is a massive, ancient, godlike entity that inhabits the deep forests. So Moda is a Jotun, which is a giant from Norse mythology, and is explicitly identified as the illegitimate daughter of Loki, hence why it's god. Now, what makes Moda iconic is that she is has a terrifyingly unique anatomical design, and at glance she looks like a massive shadow-like elk or stag with towering antlers, but when you get closer you see that her main body is actually a headless, upright, human-like torso wrapped in a quadrupedal animalistic frame. Now, where the head should be is instead a pair of glowing eyes pierce out from inside the dark cavity of the torso, so you can't really see the eye sockets, and included with that is there are 2 long human arms that hang down near the front, which she uses to capture her victims, as well as antlers on the top of her head as well. Now, we're going to go into her lore and powers as well, because it's something that the others don't really have. There is a cult surrounding Moda. So you're not just dealing with Moda, you're dealing with a cult. And Moda grants unnatural long life and freedom from pain to a small, isolated group of human worshippers who live in the forest. In exchange, they must build effigies or ritual sites to her and provide her with human sacrifices, which is what the people in the movie are, whom she brutally impales high up in the trees. She doesn't eat them, she chucks them on the trees, and they sit there, they bleed out, and that is her ritual. So not only is she immensely powerful, Shotgun's not doing anything, I'll say that right now, but she has psychologically supernatural abilities. So not only does she hunt physically, which she also stalks her prey mentally. So Moda can manipulate the minds of those who trespass in her woods and force them to experience vivid, paralyzing hallucinations of their deepest regrets, traumas, and guilt. And that's before she strikes. So immediately, it's going in S tier, because a shotgun, a fucking military, a tank isn't even going to do anything against this. It's a god. It's a godlike creature or cryptid. So Moda is going to be, the Moda's probably just going to, she could be everywhere, maybe not the sauropod and the Wendigo, but everything else, she's wiping the floor with them. There's nothing that any of them be able to do to stop her. I mean, the Chupacabra, compared to her, it's a dog, compared to this god entity. And I have to say, out of all the cryptids in media, I personally think this has the coolest design out there. Really big props for the creature design. I mean, this is a terrible quality image, but it's just so cool. And there's also the effigies of it with the human corpse and the antlers for arms it's so cool. So that is this is the draft of the list. So based on all of this, I think Loch Ness Monster can go far down, because so C tier for the Loch Ness Monster. And my reasoning for moving this one is because Nessie is an underwater. She's one of the only underwater ones in this scenario. So in terms of survivability, you can just get your bow and go and just get away from her quicker than all these others. And if we're going with the idea of you have a shotgun, I mean, if you get lucky enough where it pops its head above water, you can get a shot off, hopefully. And I mean, it's a dinosaur, so it won't accept it. But we'll go with C tier for that. I'm going to put Mothman in D tier because he's dying to a shotgun. And as long as you listen to his warning, his presence, then you're going to be okay, I think. So Mothman is basically a human moth. So I don't think that's very powerful. I also think with the, what was it called? The Jersey Devil. I mean, it looks very spindly, and I think a shotgun blast would kill it. So I'm going to drop it down to C tier. And the fact that it can't fly. If it could fly, different story, but it can't. So it's a walking lizard, basically. Bigfoot, I think, is still a B. I think that makes sense. Chupacabra can go. No, actually, Chupacabra is still A tier because of its agility. The Yeti is also A tier. I think maybe the Goat Man. I mean, I know it's fast, but if you were able to get a shot on its head as it's running up to you with a shotgun, I think you just about survive it. But it's a B tier where it's a threat. It's quite a big threat, but not something that a shotgun can't defeat. Whereas these other ones, a shotgun is going to struggle to win against these ones. So this, I think I'm happy with the list. If you're interested in cryptids and you play games, then I'm interested with strategy as well, then I am releasing a game called Appalachian Onslaught, which is a game where you play as a Native American tribe defending against a mountain pass from cryptids such as the one seen on screen. I've actually just spent the last week adding in Bigfoot, Goatman, and the Mothman as well. The Wendigo's already in. I put that in ages ago. And I'm aiming to release it in July, but Steam Next Fest is coming up on the 15th of June, and there is a demo for the game. Demo out now if you want to go play it. So if you're interested in cryptids and want to play a game that involves them, where you can look at them and see them and then fight them, then Appalachian Onslaught is probably for you. And it's free. The demo is free. So if you're interested in cryptids and games, please go check out the game. If just leave a wish list or anything, then that'd be greatly appreciated. But apart from that, leave a comment down below if you agree with the list. I'm assuming some people might put probably the Mothman higher. I think I've given it quite a harsh rating, but if you disagree, then please let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. See you later.